Welcome to Research Talk. I hope you all are having a good time. In today's video, I'm going to talk about an important question, an important aspect of conducting grounded theory, which is how to write your research questions. Research questions, the way they are written in a quantitative study or in other traditions, are not the same as you write them in a grounded theory. So we will learn how to write a good research question in grounded theory. We will also learn how to write a good purpose statement. Purpose statement is like a broader research question, and the research questions are more specific in nature. So we will learn these two aspects today. So research question in grounded theory, first of all, they are open-ended. Open-ended meaning that unlike quantitative research where the questions are more specific, such as, is there a relationship between room temperature and student performance? The answer will be either yes or no. So that's more closed-ended question. But in grounded theory, the question should be always open-ended question. So let's take an example. How do first generation learners navigate the challenges of higher education? Look at this question. How do first generation learners navigate the challenges of higher education? Now this question is open-ended question. So whenever you think about your research question for your grounded theory, always think about how to frame your question with words such as how, what. So make it more open-ended rather than closed-ended. Is there a relationship between variable 1 or variable 2? Not those kind of questions. So your question should be open-ended. Second thing one should keep in mind while framing your research question is it should be process-oriented also. As you know, grounded theory is a suitable methodology that we use to understand social processes. We want to understand how a phenomenon sort of flows. What are the processes are implicated or involved in any phenomenon. So your question should focus on these processes as well. So let's take another example. What processes and contextual factors are involved in the leadership development of student athletes? So let's say as a researcher, I want to understand how leadership develops among student athletes when they are in college. So what processes? First is open-ended, and then you have the processes and contextual factors. So you also want to understand what are some variables that influence these processes. So what processes and contextual factors are involved in the leadership development of student athletes? So when you write your research question, make sure you focus on the processes as well. Your research question also should include social interaction as well. Social interaction. So let's take an example. How do patients and healthcare providers, negotiate treatment plans in chronic illness management? How do patients and healthcare providers negotiate treatment plans in chronic illness? So your research question here is focusing on the idea of interaction, negotiate, how they negotiate, what that process of negotiation looks like when it comes to chronic illness management planning, how they interact, what are the things they talk about, so how they negotiate. So again, social interaction is emphasized here. Research questions in grounded theory are also context specific. So when you write your questions, make sure you mention the context as well. For instance, let's take another example: how remote workers in tech industry manage work-life balance during COVID-19. How remote workers in tech industry manage work-life balance during COVID-19. Now, when you read this question, this is an okay question, but what it lacks is specificity, context. So when you think about remote workers, what kind of remote workers? Are you talking about the whole company, all kind of workers? Or you want to focus on obviously some specific workers? So you can make it more contextual when you talk about workers. So I can say software developers. So I made it more context specific, software developers, when I'm thinking about workers. Another thing that you can provide more context is here it says tech industry. Now, tech industry, so you can provide more context here. You could say small startups. So here you made it provide more context. So when you say tech industry, it's a very broader term. So you made it more specific and more context. Small startups manage work-life balance during COVID-19. So that's what it means, that when you write your questions in grounded theory, make sure they give context. They provide enough contextual information when somebody is reading your research question. So I can rewrite this question as, how do remote software developers working in a small startup companies manage their work-life balance during COVID-19? So that's the idea of providing more context when you are writing your research question. Another thing to keep in mind when you are writing your research question is your research question are emergent. What it means that you can start with a research question, and then as you start your study, you can change, you can tweak, you can make some changes in your research question. Generally, when a grounded theory start his work, they start with a broader research question, and as they progress in their study, as they start becoming more familiar with the phenomenon they are exploring, they can change and make their research questions more specific. So same example, you can start like a very broader here, like how do remote workers in tech industry manage work-life balance? But as you start progressing in your study, you can make your questions from broader to more specific. So again, your research questions are changeable. They can be tweaked as you start your study. So that's briefly about what are the things you should keep in mind. Your research question in grounded theory should be open-ended, should reflect the process, because that's the job of a grounded theorist, to explore social processes and frameworks. And then obviously the social processes are developed from social interactions. Again, the philosophy of social interactionism that we covered previously. So social interaction should be there. Context is specific. This is very important. Keep in mind when you write your research question, does it give the reader enough contextual information in the research question? And also remember that your questions are not set in stone. They might be tweaked as you progress in your grounded theory research. Now let's learn how to write your purpose statement. As I said previously, a purpose statement is more sort of a broader, providing a broader focus of the study. And research question is more specific. So we learned how to write your research questions. Now let's go back and talk about and learn how to write the purpose statement in your grounded theory study. So I'm going to give you a framework that you can use when you are writing your purpose statement for your grounded theory study. So the framework starts like this. The purpose of the present grounded theory is to, and then you can use some qualifiers here, examine, explore. The purpose of the present grounded theory is to examine, explore, maybe understand, and then write the phenomenon or research focus. And finally, write a context. Let's learn it, explore it further with an example. Let's say I want to understand college student athletes' experiences and the processes involved in leadership development among student athletes. So I could write my purpose statement as the purpose of the present grounded theory is to explore, examine female student athletes' leadership development. So that's the phenomenon. I want to understand female student athletes' leadership development, how the process of leadership development looks like among female student athletes. So let's read it again. The purpose of the present grounded theory is to explore female student athletes' leadership development process in Division 1. So Division 1 is sort of a context. So in colleges, the sports are organized in Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. So that's a context here. So that's what I meant to say, provide a context. So when you write your research question, you can use this framework. The purpose of the present grounded theory is to use a qualifier here, examine, explore, understand, and then the phenomenon that you want to focus on, female student athletes' leadership development process. I want to understand here the phenomenon is the process of leadership development among student athletes. And then finally, you write the context. In what context? Do you want to, maybe another context could be in Division 1 in Florida. So again, some more context. Division 1, that's a category, and which state? We are talking about Florida in the United States. So that's giving more context. So you can use this framework when you write your purpose statement. And then after this purpose statement, you can have your next paragraph saying the guiding research question for this study are follows, and then you can write your research question. So I hope you got a sense of how to write your research questions and how to write your purpose statement in grounded theory. Based on the phenomenon that you are exploring, based on the context, you should make sure that those things are reflected in your purpose statement and your research question. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in another video about grounded theory.